Saturday morning to you, and welcome to On the Mark, along with Mark Papa. I'm Gary Byron. Mark Papa is with Financial Resources Group in Glastonbury. You know you can find them online at www.f, as in Frank, frplan.com. Hey, by the way, when you're on their website, there's a link to their YouTube channel. Mark's got a YouTube channel. So when you get to YouTube, you can go to YouTube on your own as well. Just make sure in the search field you type in Mark Papa, MarkPappa, 5207. That's Mark Papa 5207. And then write down this phone number too. It's 860-657-8380. 860-657-8380. By the way, if you missed any of that, I'll repeat it at least a couple more times before the show is over. And you really are going to want this. He's got a checklist that he wants to give to you. There's even a $100 gift card that you will receive when you sit down and chat with Mark Papa from Financial Resources Group in Glastonbury. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
I tell you, I'm not doing too shabby over here.
We
had some scorching hot weather that I love.
Yeah,
I love
like a heat wave.
I can't have. I want more of it. I miss it.
Yeah, I'm not. And, it's kind of fun to water my plants now. My hydrangeas are starting to pop a little bit, and it's fun. Before I leave, I'm running out the house, and I'm like, oh no, you better water those plants. It's going to be hot, and I hear my grandmother's voice in my head, my Nana Papa. Making sure that you water your plants and at the right time. So it's awesome. But yeah, a lot of updates, Gary, from me. A lot of new things going on.
Well, then we should get right into the show. Today, we're diving into something that you've been talking about, something called the retirement stress test. I think last week you kind of teased a little bit about it. I've been looking forward to this since you teased it last weekend. You've cleverly dubbed this retirement stress test as the Three Little Pigs test. And for those who haven't seen it, it's a checklist just to see if your financial plan can withstand the big bad wolf of retirement challenges. So maybe, Mark, you can kind of walk us through what this stress test is all about, and not only why it's important, but what can happen if you don't abide by it.
Okay, Gary, thank you for bringing that up. So this is all part of, again, it really mirrors the full checklist review that we do for folks. Again, we're talking about the non-financial things and the financial things. We're talking about little things that can jump up out of the weeds and bite you when you least expect it. Because, again, do those things occur when you least expect it, or are you going to always remember everything? And a good example of that is more recently I had a client that I couldn't do the full checklist on because he came to me at a point in time he was incapacitated. He has recently passed on, and more recently found out that they moved him out of state, and we found out that his original will was locked in a safety deposit box in a bank in Connecticut. so that means they have to fly here with the key just to get the will, so that So these are the little things that we want to avoid like the plague, and no matter how hard you try, what happens when you get into those positions, the reason we want to prepare people is when you get to that point, you're worried about taking care of your parents, putting them in the nursing home, taking care, making sure they're bathed, fed, moved around, that they have someone taking care of them. There's billions of dollars in unpaid caregiving going on in the world. So we want to make sure, so for those are the little things. But let's talk about the retirement stress test, or the Three Little Pigs test. And basically what we do is we walk you through this test. And, sometimes I'll mail it out to clients or prospects and say, hey, where do you think you stand? On a scale of 1 to 4, your house is going to be made of straw, meaning, the big bad wolf can blow that down.
Yeah.
5 to 8, your house is made of sticks, which isn't so bad. I'd say most people fall between 5 and 8 that I meet. And then 9 to 10, your house is made of bricks. We find, I'd say, maybe 1 out of 10 prospects is made of bricks. And there's really not much we can help them. That's 1 out of 10. Those are the people that we probably can't help. So that's okay. We send them on their merry way and say, hey, everything's good. Great meeting. Glad we were able to go through this. You're happy. I'm happy. And if you know any friends, colleagues, or you're an influencer among your friends, you are a pillar of organization, if you have any friends who look up to you, right, and see you as a source, would you mind sending them in? How many people do you know who could use this little?
Sure.
Oh, wow, we know tons of people.
Right.
So we'll say, we're not asking you to, recommend me as your advisor, but would you be okay in sharing the Three Little Pigs test with them, and maybe having them come meet me in the event that they don't score a 9 or 10 like you? And then I'm like, sure. And so it's a great way to get referrals too. But all we're doing is helping them help themselves, because if you think about it, people are relying on their friends, right? We all have that person in our family that has their money together that everyone asks financial advice to. I can even help that uncle, by the way. But long story short, we want to make sure people, who instead of them becoming the go-to person, just call me and I'll help clean them up, So now it's a win-win for them, and it's a win-win for their friend. So they had a great benefit for their friend.
And there's no pressure. There's no pressure at all.
Where's the pressure?
Well, I got to be his client. Now he's going to. No, I mean, this is just.
No cost, no obligation.
Exactly.
No one's ringing your phone off the hook. No one's chasing you at the, chasing you down the grocery store aisle at Whole Foods with an aggressive pitch. Absolutely not. Very chill, very relaxed. And we're just here to help folks. And again, the only people you can help are those willing to help themselves. And that goes for anything. It goes for addiction. It goes for weight loss. It goes for anything. So that same thing goes for financial planning and organization. Until people are motivated to help themselves. So let's talk a little bit about the retirement stress test. And maybe that'll motivate some folks to maybe get off the fence and start taking a second look at some of the things, because it isn't just about your money. It isn't just about your Vanguard S&P funds up this month. That's not a retirement plan, and I know it feels good when the markets are up and you're feeling confident, but having a portfolio that's doing well is awesome. No one's going to criticize that. At the same time, that's not a financial plan. Okay, so we want to talk about the big picture here.
Okay,
so
what are some of the questions that are on this stress? The Three Little Pigs stress test.
Okay, so let's start with the first one. So it says, "Would your financial foundation survive the big bad wolf?" So the first one is, "I'm certain that my plan will protect my lifestyle, regardless of stock market or interest rate conditions." Okay. So most people feel, well, they own stocks and bonds, and they might feel like their advisor, well, we have you in a 60-40 model. They trust their advisor, 60% stock, 40% bond. That's a good deal. Okay, well, that's worked for many, many years up until recently. So you have to ask yourself, have bonds been a great investment for you? So when interest rates are all-time low, you're only making, 2% on your bond portfolio? Wasn't really doing all that well for you. Now you're making some bank interest. But in order to get that interest, what had to happen is the Fed had to raise rates significantly. What happened in that same period of time? Bonds got crushed. Not only just because everything got sold off, but the big picture was the 30-year Treasury lost about 30% in that time frame as they jacked up interest rates. And that's when you saw all the banks blow up. That means a portion of your portfolio, if you had a diversified bond fund in your 40, lost a bunch of money. Okay. Now you may not have seen that, but you may not have cared, but people were bailing out on those. So that is not a safe strategy. So we would say, if you're certain your plan, you would need a different bucket to make sure that you wouldn't stomach to help buffer that volatility on both interest rates and stock volatility. So yeah, we would check that off.
What about long-term care?
I know I did a show on long-term care.
You did recently.
This is the one that says I've reviewed all available long-term care possibilities, including the product that does not have expensive monthly premiums. This is a rabbit hole. And I just talked about long-term care before, where, look, there's people out there that have their $4 million bucket of money. They pay it out of pocket. They don't want to. The reason they have that money is because they didn't pay premiums. Maybe, I don't know. It's a very interesting sweet spot with long-term care. Most people do not move forward with long-term care until they themselves had to be the caregiver, or they themselves saw a lifetime's worth of savings get completely wiped out due to long-term care costs and expense. Okay, and they see the room rate, the 24-hour care rate. It gets expensive quick. I mean, $8,000 to $14,000 a month So if it only cost you $5,000 a year, well, that was expensive. If you used it, it wasn't expensive at all, right? If you didn't use it, yeah, it gets very expensive. So we have other ideas to help people plan for that. Maybe a hybrid strategy where maybe they take some money and plunk it away to take care of some of the long-term care cost, and then the rest of their portfolio can remain invested through that period of time. Okay. So you're going to probably pull, no matter what you do, and I talk to even the best long-term care planners, the insurance is never going to cover the whole bill. It's going to cover some. It's going to take the edge off. It's going to protect your portfolio, maybe protect
long-term care.
This is your future.
Yeah.
And it's not going to get any cheaper either.
It's pricey. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is, and you have to think about,
But you may or may not need it. I mean, I could start planning right now, but planning for the worst, but who's to say I'll even need it?
Well,
I may not.
With some of the strategies we utilize, if you don't need it and you figure out you have terminal cancer, you can terminate the policy, accelerate the death benefit, do what you need to do with it. Conversely, a lot of people are going to rely on Medicaid, thinking rely on Medicaid as their solution, but then you have to impoverish yourself and potentially impoverish your spouse.
Right.
And even with those rules, you're still impoverishing your spouse for the future. So that's not usually the best way to go. If you don't have a lot of assets, it's probably the best way to go. But it's a very difficult thing because take a look at it. The system is eventually going to break, Gary. We've seen what's going on with the federal budget, what Medicaid spending, and we're spending tons of money on people who were not, call them undocumented, just for lack of a better term. But giving them health care. Give me a break. I mean, the system is going to break. It may not even be there for the future. So God only knows. It's probably smarter to take care of yourself because what kind of room are they going to put you in? And who are you going to be in a room with if you're on Medicaid in some of these facilities? I would certainly want to stay home and die there. But it doesn't always work that way. The sequence of events does not always work in your favor. So even no matter what your plan is, to have no plan is not good. So we'd always make sure people have that. So if you don't have that, obviously we would, you wouldn't get a check mark there.
Okay.
But at the very least, we would go over that and we would ask the folks, what exactly is your plan for long-term care? What would you like to do?
This stress test, the Three Little Pigs test, it's pretty comprehensive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you go over everything. For example, paying the least amount of taxes that's legally possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all part of why, again, I added in my, going back to long-term care, too. One of the reasons I started the tax strategy business and becoming the untaxable wealth strategist is people were taking advice from attorneys to say, oh, quit claim deed the house. Let's quit claim the house to the kids. So mom goes to nursing home and she'll,
she's got no assets.
Go on Medicaid.
No.
Well, you don't realize that mom has to spend her assets down to, I think, the level of $1,600.
But if you quit claim the house to your kids, that's no longer mom's house anymore. That's no longer an asset.
After 5 years, it's free and clear. Problem is now kids go to sell the house and you assume mom's cost basis. So I mentioned in a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
That means if mom's cost basis is $20,000 in the house and now it's worth $300,000, you just gave yourself a $280,000 capital gain that has to get split three ways, typically among children who are in their highest earning years in their 50s and 60s. They're going to get a big bill. They go, and if it's even the wrong time, anyone's collecting Social Security, 2 years after that fact, it could put them at a higher bracket. They're going to be paying more Medicaid or Medicare expenses if they go above what's called the IRMA. Remember I talked about that?
That's right.
IRMA.
I do remember that.
So there's so many things that need to be considered before someone does those. So yes, there's legal ways of doing it, but paying the least amount of taxes legally possible, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's not unpatriotic.
As long as it's legal. There are loopholes in the tax system. Yeah. As long as you're abiding by the laws, the tax laws, why not take advantage of what's available to you?
Exactly. And there's so many different things above and beyond the normal things like tax loss harvesting. A lot of people want to talk about Roth conversions. That's a future episode, probably 2-3 episodes down the road.
I can't wait for that one. That's a good one.
We're going to talk about how to do that and actually have somebody help you pay the taxes for you. So that's something we're going to talk about. But there's nothing wrong with having somebody scrub through your tax return and looking where your sources of income are coming from. Now, if it's not a problem today, again, in the next episode, I'm going to talk about what could potentially come down the pike depending on what political party wins. You want to prepare yourself for what could be coming down the pike. So sometimes, and here's a great example. I have somebody and all their money's trapped in traditional IRAs and traditional 401ks. All that money is taxable at what they call ordinary income. And they feel trapped. They feel like they can't get their money out, that they have to pay the piper, they have to watch their spending, they have to watch. What kind of life is that? So now you have too much money, but you can't spend it because you don't want to get hit with the tax.
Right.
So no matter what you're doing, you're putting a collar on your life. So let's come up with a strategy to fix that. Break through the ice dam, open it up, and free up some of your money so that you can actually have some tax-free money for the future. So that's something we're really good at doing. And it's a very, very possible, and it's all done legally. And in fact, not only legally, but IRS opinion letters to back them up. So when you get an IRS opinion letter,
you're fine.
The only way now, if you get audited, it's on your own stupidity. It has nothing to do with my strategy. It has to do with something dumb you did. Right.
Well, this is why they have to have open communication. Your clients, you're in constant contact with them.
Yeah,
they shouldn't do anything on their own when they're not as familiar with the legalities of it all and the implications as you are. This is what you do for a living. You know this inside and out.
Yeah, well, we always encourage anybody, if you need to make even a small financial decision, call us. Some of my best clients, and I would say, are extremely smart, and they're well researched, and we still sit down just to verify how that decision might impact them. We do that all the time. I love those meetings because it really solidifies what we're doing, and making sure you're making the right decision is so satisfactory to me.
Are there a lot of new techniques that are out there right now that people can benefit from?
Well, that's another thing. We really need to know, is the financial institution you work with just there to put new products on the shelf? And are you the guinea pig for that new product, or the guinea pig for, the young guy in the bank branch, guinea pig for them, a guinea pig for the bank's products? Is it a cookie cutter solution or one size fit all, or is it custom? And there are always something new coming out available to help people, whether it's a new tax law, a new wrinkle. One of the things I would say is artificial intelligence. Everyone's afraid of being disrupted. I'm saying artificial intelligence is going to help us discover new and even more innovative ways to help our clients. Exchange-traded funds, for example. The products coming out of the exchange-traded fund market versus the old stodgy mutual fund. And if you're sitting in an old stodgy mutual fund, you're sitting in an overpriced, parasitic, expensive product. And you should look to exit that product at some point, which I can show you how to do. Again, legally, taxed, and get the taxes out of it. But the big thing is you want to see what's new and exciting. Doesn't mean you need to buy it. You don't always need the shiny object. Sometimes slow and steady wins a race. Sometimes, you have an old reliable. But you at least want to know what those new things are. It doesn't mean you have to take advantage of them.
Folks, you are listening to On the Mark with Mark Papa. I'm Gary Byron. Of course, you can find him online at www.frplan.com, frplan.com, and 860-657-8380. Let me say that again, 860-657-8380. Sit down, meet with him. Do you already have a financial advisor? Meet with him anyways. It's not going to cost you anything. As a matter of fact, he very well may open your eyes to things that your present-day financial advisor hasn't even let on that they know. As a matter of fact, most people don't even have a financial advisor. Most people think, I'm not a millionaire. I don't need a financial advisor. Let me tell you something. There's going to come a day when you retire. You can't get by on Social Security alone. In this state, certainly in this state, in many others as well. How secure is your retirement plan? You know what? Run it by Mark Papa. He'll open your eyes to a lot. Mark, I'm so into this stress test, this retirement stress test, and the Three Little Pigs test here. Please, what else is in it?
All right. Well, would it be okay if I just gave you one more example about the new and exciting things?
Yeah. I want to hear it.
So there are these funds out there. We're seeing a lot of movement. I won't get too deep into the weeds. I'm a bit of a critic of private credit, but private credit is exploding. It's essentially non-bank regulated loans, and banks are now just becoming originators. They're using other people's money, other people's balance sheets, at the private credit market. So you have this thing called floating rate bonds. So I had an old client who had a fund in floating rate bonds that essentially had returned next to zero after fees for about 6 or 7 years. And it's actually a good time to be in products like that, because when interest rates rise and the floating rate actually goes up, it's like a variable mortgage. And, if rates are going up, you're paying more. And it's just the way it goes. Long story short, he was paying almost 2% in fees for this product. And not only that product was passing on any gains or potential capital gains or distributions to him, and actually hurt his taxes to the point where his Medicare premium spiked, like I talked about, and had me review it. But he didn't want to change the investment because he'd been with the advisor for like 35 years. And I talked to the advisor was a dinosaur. It was the same old funds. He knew the fund inside and out. But then there's another same exact fund with a higher rate of return, a potential rate of return, I'll use that for the compliance department, and a much lower fee versus 2%, 0.60. Because it's not a cheap fund, but 0.60 with no tax or capital gains passed through. And I said, why don't you just swap your fund? You haven't made any money in 6 years into this product, or you know what? Just as I'll throw you a bone because I had his wife's money. Let me talk to your advisor, and maybe you can do it through him. Because I just can't stand to see you paying all these high fees. You know what? He's like, nah, I'm not doing anything. Stubborn old guy, 90 years old. But my point is, if you're with an advisor that hasn't been, moves your money around too much, and you may have a problem too. But is you've been sitting on the same old mutual funds for the last 15 or 20 years, and I illustrate that you've only made 5 or 6% in those products when, the same exact funds in a different type of category have made more. And, that's not why we meet, but we need to wake up and start taking a look at some of the new things. Anyway.
Did you want to do one more?
And the thing is, what kind of advisor would I be, Gary, on any of this? What kind of advisor would I be if I wasn't helping clients protect their lifestyle? Or what kind of advisor would I be if I wasn't helping
Well, you wouldn't
people?
be doing your job.
I wouldn't be doing my job, right?
Yeah.
And then, what kind of advisor would I be if I wasn't showing people some of the new things that are coming out in the market that could benefit them? Would I be good or bad at the end of the day?
What kind of a score? You mentioned this 1 through 4 means one thing, and if you live in a straw house, what score are you looking to? Where should people be in their score?
I would say most people are going to probably. I'd love to see people fall between 9 and 10, but I'd say most people, because of the way our industry is, it's your advisor, for example, I'm positive my power of attorney will work with Social Security, Medicare, veterans benefits, and the IRS. How many people do you think get that question right?
Probably not many.
How many people? I haven't had anyone yet that's gotten that right. Now, I'm not saying that won't happen, okay? But the answer is your power of attorney doesn't work with Social Security. It doesn't work with Medicare. It doesn't work with the VA. It doesn't work with the IRS. And again, we have a lot of farmers in the area. It also doesn't work with the Food and Drug Administration if you have any grants from them. Any money that comes in back and forth from your farming business, doesn't work. So we need to make sure that if you are affiliated with any of those organizations, exactly in the event of your incapacity, you can get your Social Security turned back on in the event it gets shut back off, or your Medicare even. There's a special form for Medicare. Medicare's a health insurance. They're reimbursing. So isn't that reimbursement in and of itself financial, Gary?
That's a good point.
Now, there's another thing that's also medical power of attorney, right? And there's also a medical release thing. They call it HIPAA. You know about that?
Yeah, of course.
How many people think would get that right?
Yeah, probably
not many.
No.
So those are the kind of things we want to make sure people get covered on.
What about like programs that could replace a spouse's Social Security? Is that covered too, or?
Well, that's an interesting one. Because what happens is when a spouse passes away, you're going to lose a third to half of the gross Social Security income for the household.
Yeah, exactly.
And where it gets even worse is if not both Social Security were barely covering the bill for both of you. Now one's gone. what happens is you also go into a higher tax bracket because you file married in that final year, and then now you jump to single. And then that causes a problem because now your tax brackets are different. The way your Social Security gets taxed is totally different because your tax is single. So what we do is there is a program you can apply for that'll help offset some of the income that you lose from your Social Security program. And that's something that people can discover when they come through and talk about our checklist.
Nobody knows about all this. I mean, you do.
People do. Well, there's 150 advisors.
You're
in
the only one talking
know.
about it, though.
I'm one of 150, and of the 150, I don't know how many that practice this, but I practice this like it's Jedi religion, And these are not Jedi mind tricks, by the way. But I do it. I'm very serious about this. But you know what? It's helped my clients, and it's helped our business grow. But mostly, it helps our clients because I know this isn't being done. So it just gives me that competitive edge. But not only that, you're there to make your clients whole. And again, if they're not doing those things, I have no idea.
Take 30 seconds. Talk about the $100 gift card that people can get. Because I got about a minute and 20 seconds left.
Fantastic, Gary. So again, I would love to have you to my office or Zoom. Even we can do Zoom meetings.
Okay.
To come in and do what we call our introductory meeting. Our introductory meeting is not a sales pitch. It actually is what we call the goals meeting. It's short and sweet, 30 to 40 minutes max. Unless you have more questions, I'll give you as much time as you need. We take the goals meeting. We come up with those goals. You come back for a full checklist review. Mm-hmm. That in much of which I discussed in the three little pigs test, the things that are missing.
Sure.
At the end of that meeting, whether you like me or not, whether you want to move forward with me or not, you're getting your $100 gift card. However, again, even in the smallest small $250,000 household, $3,291 in benefits received that people who are unaware of are uncovered.
And no checkbook. They don't need to write you. This is
nothing.
It's complimentary.
Come on in, but we're going to find those benefits. We're going to do the three little pigs test,
and it's like a Visa gift card, right?
Yeah. Well, Visa gift card. Or I was when gas was high, I was using Cumberland Farms. So I have 5 gift cards left for Cumberland Farms for $100, so you can fill up a couple tanks of gas at the very least.
Wow.
And get a coffee.
Yeah, why not? Folks, if you'd like more information on Mark Papa and Financial Resources Group out of Glastonbury, check them out online, www.frplan.com. FR stands for Financial Resources, obviously. That's his name of his business in Glastonbury. And write this phone number down, and better yet, use it. Do this checklist. It's complimentary. Get your free $100 gift card. Get gas with it. Get coffee with it. Get anything you want with it. 860-657-8380. One more time. 860-657-8380. For Mark Papa, I'm Gary Byron. Thank you so much for listening to On the Mark. Until next Saturday morning, have a good one, everybody. So long.